Welcome to the Liquidity Event, a show about all things personal finance with a laser focus on taxes, financial independence, and equity compensation. Hosted by AJ and Shane of Brooklyn FI, each episode will focus on a personal finance topic, some driven by news headlines and sometimes driven by listener questions. And sometimes you'll just get two money nerds rambling about what they think is interesting. Just a quick note before we get started, this podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered tax or investment advice.
Welcome to the Liquidity Event. We're your hosts, AJ Ayers.
And I'm Shane Paul Mason.
And this is episode 143, being recorded on April 15th, 2025. Happy Tax Day, airing April 18th. A quick reminder for you listeners, we will answer your questions on the pod if you leave us a message. You can disguise your voice and use a fake name if you're shy. That is memo.fm/the Liquidity Event. Shane, how are we doing today?
Awesome. Yeah. I have a stain on my favorite shirt. So for all those of you that I pulled this one out of the closet for this is an expensive polo, AJ. I was really balling out in LA and I pulled it out of the closet. I threw it on for the podcast because it's like springtime, summertime polo. And so
you elevated above Everlane for once.
The Shane fashion renaissance is alive and well. And
I'm here for it.
Got a little bit of money.
I am here for it.
And I started shopping on Sunset Boulevard.
Little bit of money, a lot of threads.
But if you don't know how to have nice things because you're used to wearing Dickies and Uniqlo, then you end up with stains on your shirts. So, dear listener, this is not a fashion touch. This is a straight up stain. But anyway, I'm doing great. I'm glad
you hate to hear it.
Yeah, I filed a couple buddies' tax returns last night, right under the deadline, including your boys' extension. Our tax team really killed it again this year. Shout out to Dan Beyer of the Brooklyn FI tax director and all of our financial planners that assist him with getting those tax returns out the door accurately and on time, and for getting those extensions filed on time with payments to avoid penalties. Love the team here at Brooklyn FI. AJ, how are you doing?
100%. I'm doing well. Today on the show, it is our 7th anniversary of Brooklyn FI on 4/20, the day we were blessed by New York State to give investment advice. So Shane and I are going to run through the 7 things we've learned in 7 years of running Brooklyn FI. However, I think we have 15 things, so it might be 15, but we're going with 7 and 7. What's into 7? Remember the 7 and 7 drink? What is that, like Seagram 7 and 7 and up? 7 up?
I don't know. Seagram 7...
In 7-Up. I used to drink that shit in college. Anyway.
That's not what it is because it's alcoholic.
That's not what it is?
Those are 2 non-alcoholic things. It sounds like you in college, yeah.
No, isn't Seagram's, isn't that gin?
Seagram? What is it? Yeah, that is gin. Know.
It's gin, yeah. It's like a gin in like a glass bottle.
Nah, it's whiskey.
What am I thinking of?
It's whiskey.
All right, anyway. Oh, is it whiskey and...
I think it's Canadian. That's why we don't know.
Nah, whatever. Anyway.
It's scotch. I don't know. Fuck.
Oh, whatever.
What am I?
I used to drink them. They were
former
disgusting.
Bartender of 8 years?
Bartender? That's why I asked you. I don't know.
Anyway, a lot of gin and tonics being served in the Deep South. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, that's true. Which is a great drink. I love gin and tonic. Before we get into our 7 things we've learned in 7 years as business owners, we do have a listener question because someone listened and went to memo.fm/liquidity event and left us a voicemail. Shane, are you excited to answer this live on the pod?
I'm ready to rock.
So, I got a big question for my friends AJ and Shane. I have an enormous tax bill. More than double what I was expecting to need to be paid today. And I also have a bigger first quarter estimate than I was expecting. Now, here's the problem. I have a lot of expenses. Huge expenses. My water heater does not work. I have no hot water. I can't even take a hot shower. And so I'm replacing that. It's getting installed next week. It's tankless. Pretty nice. Lots of hot water. But I also have an issue with my refrigerator and my car. Well, the kids' private school tuition is coming up soon. And all this money is going to be flowing out. I could actually pay all the bills today. But then I won't have anything until I get my next commission check. That's almost 3 months away. So what do you think I do? It's this big tax bill that messed me up. You think I should just pay everything off and take some money out of my HELOC? Or tap my 401k? Or what should I do, guys?
Ooh, great question. Okay, so basically they're asking, big tax bill, is there anything I can do about it? What is your initial reaction?
My initial reaction is that taxes are probably behind retirement the most expensive thing you'll pay for in your entire life. And to have a surprise liability like this is very damaging psychologically. So, as somebody that sells predictive, a view into the future surrounding your tax bill, you might spend some money
crystal ball, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, to be surprised by your tax bill in 2025 is
Sucks.
just not necessary anymore. There's plenty of people out there and software out there that can help you get to answers. Now, the tax landscape is more complicated than it needs to be. Shout out to Intuit, Big Blue. I am an advisor to you guys. They do lobby Congress to keep taxes. I've sold my soul to the devil a little bit in that I do express these views to Intuit's strategic team frequently, but capitalism, it is what it is. But yeah, I think you should pay for advisory. And also, but to answer your question, you can go on an installment plan. I'll actually let you take this part of the bill, AJ. Yeah,
sure.
Go for it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I feel for this person, right? They made a bunch of money, so congratulations. If you have a big tax bill, it means you made a lot of money. But if you make a lot of money, it means you probably have an expensive lifestyle, and that's really what they're saying. They have a cash crunch right now. They weren't expecting it. An accountant calls you on, April 15th or April 14th last night and says, hey, you owe, what was it? I forget the number. It was a lot of money. Most of us don't have that money liquid ready to pay the IRS. So where do you get this money? I think the answer here, one, yes, get an accountant that's going to do a tax projection for you. Sounds like this person earns commissions, so their income is lumpy, so they don't have like a W-2, but you could do a tax projection in October at least and know kind of what your income's going to be. It might not be perfect on the nose, but the surprise is going to be a lot less. But yes, the answer is an installment plan, which a lot of people don't know about this. I feel like a lot of accountants don't even know about this. You can go to if you owe less than $50,000, if that's the amount you owe to the IRS, you can just go to the IRS website, click a few buttons, and set up an installment agreement, which is basically saying like, hey, IRS, I don't have this money now. I will pay it to you at some point. Can I go on a 5-year plan and pay this monthly? I'll pay a very fair interest rate, and we'll handle it. We'll get it handled. And if this person's going to get a commission check in at the end of the next quarter in 3 months, they can pay it off then. This is such an easy no-brainer. Avoid the stress, avoid the chaos. And if you owe more than $50,000, you just have to get on the phone with them. It's a little more annoying, not gonna lie. You and I have been on the phone with the IRS to try to get these installment agreements done if they're above $50,000. But if you owe less than 50, no-brainer, just get this done. There's no shame in this. It's just that you don't have the cash today. Agree?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Cool. That's the answer. Other places you can get liquidity, sure. You can tap your home equity line of credit if you already have one of those. You can borrow from your 401k. Either of those strategies works here, but we have a very simple solution here, which is ask the government for some money, which is usually the best place to borrow money from, usually the lowest interest rate. That's one thing we've learned in 7 years, I would say, is that the IRS is not evil. The IRS just is there to help you pay the money that you owe. And unfortunately, it is Congress and politicians and bureaucracy and lobbyists that have made paying your taxes complicated. And Brooklyn FI exists to make taxes easier for people. And if you call the IRS, they are happy to help you figure out how to pay your taxes in a reasonable way. So anyway, that wasn't really one of my 7 things I've learned. Shane, why don't you kick us off being a business owner, owning a tax and financial planning and investment management, wealth management firm for 7 years. What are some things that you've learned?
And now a B2B SaaS company. Shout out to Gemify.co. My entrepreneurial journey, I've learned a lot. We have a lot of items here, so I'm going to be punchy with ours.
Okay,
here.
punch me. Don't punch me.
You guys heard that, right? That's on record for the inevitable lawsuit. My first one is, dear editors, please note that. Please spot that. We're 7 minutes and 15 seconds into the recording. Anyway, there is no greater reward for hard work than working as an entrepreneur, I would say. I was always chafed when working at PwC or at other firms. I started my entrepreneurial journey in 5th grade selling bubblegum, which I inevitably got in trouble for. But I always loved having my own side hustle. And there's just no greater reward for somebody that is wired the way that I'm wired. It's just incredible that no matter how hard you work at a day job, there really is a cap on how much a company can pay you based on the budget for the salary and bonuses that are allotted to you. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think that working incredibly long hours in your 20s, which I'll circle back to in another bullet point, is incredible for your career. Unfortunately, monetarily, there is a cap on how much you can earn when working at a salary job. So when you're working those extra hours, it really is for your own knowledge base and your own future credibility and marketability, but there is less of a ROI for you as an employee. So, that's one of my big takeaways, is that when it comes to like financial rewards, working hard for yourself has an unlimited upside. AJ, what do you think?
I like that. I like that a lot. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And I think, yeah, if you're working for someone else, there's only so much you can do. I will add that working closely with someone who is an entrepreneur, aka taking a riskier job at a smaller company where you're closer to the top, is where you can get kind of closer to that, potentially with ownership, either in the company or through a profit share or something like that. So working for a big company versus working for an entrepreneur, you're going to have a different experience as an employee. I will add
a bit of a mixture between between ownership and employee.
Yeah, exactly. I will add that, yes, hard work is so important. You and I worked incredibly hard. We sacrificed relationships, times, health, vacation, a lot of other things. A lot of people work really hard, right?
Curious with those other things.
Coming soon to a podcast near you. Sanity, mental health, fertility, all the above. That's par for the course, right? Like hard work has to happen. You also need a little bit of luck and serendipity to have success above your peers, right? Brooklyn FI started, you and I worked incredibly hard. We also had friends that were working very hard. We made some great decisions early on. We decided to niche into equity compensation, and we were ready to serve folks who had equity compensation when we saw the biggest year for IPOs in the history of IPOs. So that was kind of a right place, right time kind of thing. Yes, you and I worked hard. Yes, we got to there, but we picked this niche, and then we just saw tremendous growth in that sector, and we were there with open arms to welcome those clients. So, hard work is not going to get you 100% of the way there. It's like par for the course. Like, you have to work hard to make a business work. I hear a lot of my peers and clients say, "Oh my God, I'm working crazy hours at this job as an employee. I'm going to go start my own business so I can have control of my schedule." That is a lie. That's not a thing. You don't work less when you work for yourself, when you're an entrepreneur. That's just, eventually you can figure it out if you have that success. But when you're starting out and you're figuring out how to run the business, the hours are longer. You have less control over your schedule.
100%. You work more for less money.
Yep.
In my
and hopefully
experience,
it pays off, right?
Right. Yeah, there is hopefully a J curve in your income. You and I have been through the depths of the J, and now we're coming out on the other side of the J, on the J curve. My next item here, speaking of which, is the working hard when you're young. My advice to people that want to become entrepreneurs is to burn the candle at both ends in your 20s, because there's not much wax on that bad boy the older you get. And you'll definitely need to leverage third parties, whether it's software or employees, to help you in your 30s, 40s, and 50s, as you have less natural energy to devote to the business. As you get dogs and children and families expand, you're not going to be able to work the crazy hours and live in a shoebox in a big city and really like dance through the raindrops, as some say, as you grow this business. You can have a day job where you're working 40, 50 hours a week, and then have a side hustle where hopefully you're working in the same industry or another industry that you want to transition into, and work and pick up another 20, 30 hours in the week, depending on seasonality. You can end up working 80 to 100 hours a week to really build that foundation that you can leverage and come out the other side of the J curve later on in your 30s and your 40s.
Yeah, for sure. Love that. Yeah, opportunity is not gonna, I feel like people have this misconception of like, oh, I'm gonna quit my job and take some time off and write my business plan and then pop right back in and then start my business. So your business starts while you're doing well in your current job. And you have that energy usually when you're younger, although some people start later in life. We just started another business after burning the candle to the goddamn last breath of wick.
Well, I mean, there's a lesson in that as well, because now we have a network of people that we can sell to with this other company. We have a network of people that we can hire. We know how operations work. Like, a lot of the candle burning or the wax burning, so to speak, in our 20s doesn't need to happen again, because we've already learned those lessons and we can leverage them. And there is this slippery slope where, like, you and I, we made a commitment to each other 7 years ago that we would be out by 40. And then you realize that the first few million, the first few hires of revenue are incredibly tough, but it just gets easier and easier as you acquire those skills. So it's a little bit like, do we really let all these skills? I mean, I dropped out of accounting at 25. I almost joined the Peace Corps. I almost ended up in Namibia in the desert and sacrificing 7 years of work in the CPA space and my license and all of that. And I realized, like, let me just get back in this and knock it out while I'm young, and then I can do that later. And I'm kind of at that crossroads now, and you are too, where we're like, do we continue to do this? And it's not as hard as it used to be. Can we continue to leverage this? Can we create opportunities for other people? Can we be creative entrepreneurs? I don't know. It's a fun game. You have to constantly check in with yourself. That's another lesson that I hadn't added to this list, but definitely one that we should consider.
Yep, absolutely agree. And I think so much of it is you get what you put in, right? And like when you're starting out, you don't have a lot to put in other than hours and trying experiments to see if they work. Like that's all you have, right? Is research and learning from other people. But after you start to do it and you start to hire people, like now you have more resources, now you have more time. Maybe now you have some income and you have some free cash flow of the business to invest back into it. But in the beginning, I remember you and I had Gmail addresses, and then we had two hires who shared an email address, hi@BrooklynFI, because we didn't want to pay the extra, $11 a month it was for Gmail. And like, that was because we didn't have like $11. That was $5.50 from each of you and I's pocket that we didn't have.
You weren't you were making just under 6 figures. I had quit my job and was making no figures. So yeah. we were very scrappy. Much bootstrapped that bad boy, Brooklyn FI all the way.
Yeah, and it worked. And honestly, I think a lot of businesses, most businesses fail because they run out of money, they run out of cash, and they can't get through a hard time. Maybe your business is seasonal and you didn't have enough, emergency fund stashed in the bank to get through it. Your business is going to fail. So you can either bootstrap it, pull into your own personal cash reserves. We did not contribute to retirement accounts for a few years, despite what we were telling our clients. You're sitting all day telling clients, stock your 401ks, stock your 401ks. And you and I are sitting here making no income for that first year. So all to say, you get out of it what you put in. And you and I put in a lot, and we got a lot out of it.
100%.
One thing I want to say, though, and this is my sort of little only regret, is that for those of you starting businesses,
only little regret.
You can take time off. You can take a day or 2 or 3 here and there in the beginning when you are starting a business and you are pouring everything into it, and it feels like you cannot. It feels like if you step away, the whole thing will come crashing down and there will be a million emails and all of your clients will fire you. Speaking from personal experience, that is how I felt for the first definitely 3 years. There didn't feel like a moment where we could breathe. I remember, Shane, Thanksgiving was my favorite day of the year because you could almost guarantee that no one was going to email you. That was the only day for 3 years that I felt like I could really take off and breathe. And like my family would be like, come hang out with us and come make food. And I was like, no, I'm going to the mountains by myself with my husband. Do not talk to me, because this is my one day of peace for this whole year, because we all know that Christmas and New Year's, that's the end of the year. Our clients would reach out with, end of year tax planning and whatnot. So you can take a few days off, even if it feels like you can't. What else you got?
I would say I love that one. That is a special day for us for sure, and also like around Christmas time if you celebrate or what have you. Like but it's also kind of year end for us, so people are trying to squeeze things in. Well, that's what I'm saying. I remember
one year it was like the IPO year, and it was BarkBox filed their S1 in like late December, and all of a sudden we had all these potential clients reaching out, and all of our calendars were blocked off. And I removed my block, and I did 10 discovery calls in the week between Christmas and New Year's, and brought on a bunch of amazing clients who are still clients to this day because we had to. That was a choice we made. Would I do that today? Absolutely not. But at that moment, I made that choice.
Right on. Right on. The early days. Love to see it. My next item here is I asked somebody what to define a creative act. Their first name starts with a C and ends with at GPT. And it requires self-expression, imagination and originality, skill development, mental engagement, and flow. It's purpose-driven, and it has a personal or social reward. And in my opinion, AJ, entrepreneurship is a creative act. Somebody asked me recently...
Wait, are you talking about the Rick Rubin book?
Sure, whatever. I haven't read that book, but I've given it as gifts. And it is indeed a creative act. If you put all those 6 things behind the... What is so funny?
I'm sorry, I'm just laughing. That was just very funny. There needs to be a German word. Like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. I've given like I identify this term that I'm going to talk about for the next 5 minutes, and I've given people this book, yet I haven't read it. I don't know why that's so funny to me.
I don't get it.
The Creative Act is the title of Rick Rubin's book.
Mm-hmm. I'm saying a definition of a creative action. Okay, all right. As usual, I'm out on the joke. AJ's cracking yourself up.
Anyway,
entrepreneurship is a creative act. I don't feel like it's a great way to express yourself, and it's not necessary to also like take a break to play piano when you're creating a company. Is all I'm trying to say here. I think that it
is or is not necessary.
It is not necessary. I think that you are expressing yourself. You're developing your imagination and originality. You're developing skills. There's mental engagement and flow. It's purpose-driven, and there is a social reward for developing a business. If there is no social reward, I mean, if you're a straight-up pickpocket, then yeah, or if you're selling insurance, excuse me, then maybe that's not a creative act. But I think that you and I would both agree that we've expressed ourselves over the past 7 years within Brooklyn FI. My next item.
I don't know. I might disagree with that slightly. I do feel that, well, maybe for me it was different because I was learning something entirely new. So I felt like I didn't have space to be creative or like stretch my creative muscles. So I did feel like it was very much focused on business building and there wasn't room for other things. But that's me personally. What else you got?
If you're growing an enterprise or hiring people in general, you need to work on the relationships as much as you do with any other type of relationship. I've just found that like you can't really coast on your relationships with your employees or your vendors or what have you. Like you need to check in and ask hard questions and like be pretty intimate and be personal if you're going to be a manager of people. Like it's not just here's some money, go do the job. Like you need to develop the people that you're working with. You need to know what they want out of their job. I'm a big fan out of the 3 things that make people happy that we get from the book Drive is autonomy, purpose, and mastery. Autonomy and like delegating people to like giving them control of how they get things done. Like they're not going to do things the way you would do, but it makes them feel fulfilled at work. Like they have purpose at work is like what you're doing is having an impact. If your job is not having an impact on the people that you're working with, I think you need to figure out like how to make it have an impact. Luckily, like within the financial planning space, we can see directly the kids that are born, the houses that are built or purchased, and the vacations that are experienced and realized, and the futures that are realized for our clients. And then mastery is like just doing a hard job that requires getting better at it year after year. Like as long as your employees or the people that you work with feel like they're expressing mastery and like getting better at something, it's going to keep them engaged at work. So I think that having hard conversations with your employees and your vendors and your stakeholders about those 3 things and making sure that those are being expressed, even if they're not telling you or checking in on those things, is a huge thing for the people that you work with.
Yeah, and I think that's why hiring your first employees is so hard, because you started a business because you're good at something or you saw a gap in the market, right? And so you're the founder, right? You're the CEO. You're also the CFO because you got to do the finances. You're also the CTO because you got to pick out the tech. You're also the CMO because you got to market your product and tell people about it. And you're also the chief people officer, the CPO, because you have to hire people and make sure they're a good fit for you. And most people hire someone when they're so overwhelmed and they don't have time to really do a check-in and figure out exactly what they need. They just hire for the thing that feels most on fire, and they're not in a good headspace. They're just like, great, you have a pulse and you can make my life slightly easier so I can go keep bringing on new business. And Shane, I love this point about nurturing your employees, but I think that's one of the hardest transitions to make as an entrepreneur and a business owner, is to go from building, is this thing going to work, to actually starting to build up a team and figuring out what type of person, what type of skill sets make someone a good fit for working in your company. What is the culture going to be like? In the beginning, the culture is just you. Like, that's the culture. Like, for you and I, it was a mixture of our personalities, which was very interesting and continues to be very interesting. But Brooklyn FI has its own culture now that is separate from UNI, which is really cool. And that came from years of finding the right person, figuring out what made people excited about working at Brooklyn FI. We've landed somewhere on you get pleasure and personal fulfillment from solving really hard problems is kind of what we landed on. If that's how you feel, you're going to have a good time at Brooklyn FI, and everyone here is really kind and looks out for each other also. And you get to work from home. So if you have those things, you're going to be a good fit for Brooklyn FI.
Yeah.
What else
did you want to? I believe you added something.
Oh, I've got some. Yeah. Disagree and commit is essential for any leadership team to function, especially when those leaders are being leaders for the first time, which is usually the case. Occasionally, we see CEOs depart and start their own thing, but you and I were not leaders. Sure, we were at some level in our previous careers, but we were certainly not leaders of companies, and we had to learn how to do that. So the first people in leadership that we had to deal with was each other. And very early on, I don't think we ever said this out loud, but it was just sort of this understanding that this has to work. And in order for this to work, our relationship has to be able to move forward. So when you and I get in a fight, it's a little testy for a few minutes and we go, okay, we're good. Yep, done. Moving on to the next thing. We disagree and we move on and we solve problems quickly. And I think, honestly, Shane, I think that's one of the biggest strengths of our relationship. And I think that sort of hopefully has trickled into the rest of the leadership as we've added a director, a managing partner, a director of each department. For example, like we made a big pricing change a few years ago. And I remember there was a lot of debates and you and I had a disagreement about it. John disagreed with us. And eventually I forget who was arguing which side. And at the end of the day, we just said, this is what we're doing and we're moving forward. And we did it and it was great for the business. And here we are on the other side of it.
Yeah, I would have to second that. I think that's a great thing we stole from Bezos. That idea of disagreeing and committing was huge. And that leads me into like one of my other items here is that stealing as much as you can as a young entrepreneur is green light on that. And stealing is one word for it. Borrowing is another word for it. What do they say? Like good artists borrow, great artists steal, something like that. Speaking of creative acts. I think we just stole as much as we could from other people when we were just getting started. And by the way, when I say stealing, I mean like listening to podcasts and listening how other people do things, right? How other processes have been solved. So many problems have been solved by other people. And then you can come in and put your own spin on what it is that they've done for your own process, or your own tech stack, or your own service model, or your own pricing. Right, so many problems have already been solved out there. Like you can go out there and borrow, beg, or steal from other people to solve the problems. As long as you have a mission and you're driven and like you're solving a hard problem. Like for us, it was solving equity compensation problems that nobody else was solving for these people. So we borrowed from others to get our tech stack up, our service model up, our compliance up, what have you. And you should do the same when founding a company and getting up off the ground. And people are happy to give it to you, and people are happy to help each other. And hopefully you're in a blue ocean where there's plenty of opportunities, and you're not fighting for the same fish, so to speak. So when it comes to borrowing and begging, I think that's a requirement for entrepreneurs, and you should not be ashamed to do so.
Yeah, and I think I've learned how to borrow and beg over the years. It's like when you're just starting out and you like see someone you admire, you're like, can I talk to you, please? Do you have time for me, please? And you and I get those reach outs, and I'm like, I don't know you. Like, what do you want to talk about? This is weird. Where if someone says, hey, I saw that you do equity compensation. I'm really interested in that. And I saw that you're a this designation. Is there something, can you tell me about that? Was that worth it? And I'm like, oh, sure. I'm less scared that this conversation is going to be weird for me, and I will decide if I have 15 minutes to give you. And if I do, I will happily take your call.
I've got two of those coming up.
Oh yeah, go for it.
No, I've got like two of those calls coming up where somebody's like, hey, I just love what you've done. Could I chat with you about it?
I have two of them this afternoon, and I'm regretting.
I always regret them the day of.
Always regret.
Yeah, but
if you folks are listening, I haven't met you yet, so I don't know that you're awesome.
I mean, you regret it because it's time out of your busy calendar, and then you meet somebody and
Exactly.
you're like, that gives you energy. You're like, you're giving
Of
back,
course.
just like somebody helps
And
you out.
and almost always it's a great outcome, whether it's a potential future connect or a great fit for us, or just you gave someone advice about something that you did that was hard and maybe you helped them. So that feels good. A little bit of altruism there.
All right, host AJ, I've got two more here, but we've only got 2 minutes. So maybe trim one of these.
Pick a good one.
Okay, I'll just stick with this last one here. I think that healthy competition is super crucial. And when I say competition, I mean in your own mind when it comes to what you're doing. I think that you should be competitive as a person. Capitalism is a competitive sport. Unfortunately, it's a combat sport. It's a full contact sport, and you need to be ready to be competitive. Also but forgive yourself. If you did not win a contract, if you did not nail the prospect or what have you, if you did not nail the prospect call or what have you, you need to be competitive, but you need to have a competitive spirit. Frankly, it's a difficult game out there, and you're going to be competing with other people. But you also need to forgive yourself. It's also a healthy competition, I think, is what I'm trying to get at here. Like, I think you and I have a healthy competition between the two of us. We're always trying to one-up each other over the 7 years, and that's kept us on our toes. And that has been driving, it's like the fuel in the tank for driving Brooklyn FI forward and upward and through that J curve. It's been something that keeps us moving. So I think healthy competition, I think, is what I want to end on in terms of you need to have a competitive mind if you're going to be an entrepreneur.
Love that. That's a great place to end. Any final thoughts on entrepreneurship? Would you do it all over again? We're about to do it all over again. So
I don't think I have a choice personally. I don't think I could be a good employee. I think entrepreneurship is where you need to go if you can't fit into a corporation. So I don't really have a choice anymore. So yeah, I would do it all over again because I can't do anything else.
Well,
what about
cheers
you?
to us. Cheers to you. Yeah, of course I do it all over again. I'm looking forward to doing it all over again with you right now. Cheers to you. Cheers to 7 years. Cheers to 7 more. And see you on the other side. Thanks so much for listening, folks. You can email us your financial problems at liquidityevent@brooklynfi.com. Leave us a voicemail at memo.fm/liquidityevent. We will play it on the air as you heard on this episode. And finally, fans can leave us a review if they want to be weird about it. We will see you next week. Have a great one.